My son stole my life savings to buy his wife a car, so I made one phone call that destroyed his credit forever. When my son Bradley said, "Mom, just sign this power of attorney so I can help with your bills," I trusted him completely and signed the papers. 3 weeks later, I found out he had drained my entire retirement account of $127,000 to buy his wife Amber a brand new luxury SUV. The worst part? When I confronted him, he laughed and said, "What are you going to do about it, Mom? You're 68 years old with no money and nowhere to go. You should be grateful we're even talking to you." They thought they were dealing with a helpless old woman who didn't understand money. They were about to learn I was a retired bank manager who had spent 35 years protecting people's finances from exactly this kind of fraud. Justice must be restored and arrogance punished. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. For 3 years after my husband Harold passed away, I thought I was living the perfect retirement. I had my little house paid off, a healthy savings account, and what I believed was a loving family who cared about me. My son Bradley and his wife Amber lived just 20 minutes away with their 2 teenage kids, Kelly and Mason. Every Sunday, they'd come over for dinner. I'd cook Bradley's favorite pot roast, and we'd all sit around my dining room table like a real family. I was so proud of Bradley. He worked as a sales manager at a car dealership, and Amber was a part-time receptionist at a dental office. They seemed to be doing well, but I knew raising 2 teenagers was expensive. So whenever they mentioned money troubles, I was always ready to help. When Kelly needed $800 for her senior trip, I wrote the check without hesitation. When Mason's car broke down and they needed $1,200 for repairs, I covered it gladly. When Amber mentioned wanting to take a real estate course that cost $600, I encouraged her and paid for it. "Mom, you're too generous," Bradley would say, but he never refused the money. Looking back now, I realize how carefully they had been setting me up. The requests started small: gas money here, grocery money there. Then they got bigger. A few hundred for car repairs, 1,000 for home improvements. Always with the same story. "We'll pay you back next month, Mom." But next month never came. Instead, the requests kept growing. The real turning point came last spring when Amber started visiting me alone during the day. She'd bring coffee and pastries, sit at my kitchen table, and talk about how worried she was about my finances. "Beverly, honey," she'd say in that sweet voice of hers, "Harold was always the one who handled the money, wasn't he? Are you sure you're managing everything okay by yourself?" I told her I was fine. I'd been managing my own finances perfectly well. "Thank you very much." But she kept pushing. "It's just that, Bradley, and I worry about you. What if someone tries to take advantage of you? What if you forget to pay a bill, or someone tricks you into signing something?" The more she talked, the more she made it sound like I was already losing my mind. Like I was some confused old lady who couldn't be trusted with her own checkbook. Then Bradley joined the campaign. During our Sunday dinners, he started making comments about how I seemed forgetful, and how he worried about me living alone. "Remember last week when you couldn't find your reading glasses?" he'd say. "They were on your head, Mom. That's not normal." Or, "You told us the same story about Mrs. Patterson's cat twice in one dinner. Are you feeling all right?" I wasn't being forgetful. I was being distracted by their constant questions about my finances, and their subtle suggestions that I couldn't take care of myself. But they made me start doubting my own mind. The final manipulation came in early summer. Bradley arrived at my house on a Tuesday afternoon with a folder full of papers and a very serious expression. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, settling into Harold's old recliner like he owned the place. "Amber and I have been researching, and we think you need to set up a power of attorney. You know, just in case something happens to you." He spread the papers across my coffee table and started explaining how a power of attorney would protect me, how it would make sure my bills got paid if I got sick or confused, how it would give him the legal right to help me manage my money. "But Bradley," I said, "I don't need help managing my money. I worked at First National Bank for 35 years. I think I understand finances pretty well." He laughed. Not a mean laugh, but the kind of laugh you give a child who says something cute but wrong. "Mom, that was different. You were just a teller, right? This is your own money we're talking about." It's more complicated. I wanted to correct him. I hadn't been just a teller. I'd worked my way up to assistant manager and then branch manager. I'd handled million-dollar business accounts and helped hundreds of families protect their savings. But something in his tone made me keep quiet. Look, he continued. You don't have to use it unless you really need help. It's just a safety net. But if something happens to you, at least I'll be able to take care of your bills and make sure you're not getting ripped off by some scammer. The way he said scammer, with such concern, made me feel foolish for hesitating. Here was my son trying to protect me, and I was acting suspicious of his motives. So I signed the papers. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was believing that the son I raised would never use that power to hurt me. 3 weeks later, I got a call from my bank. The voice on the other end was professional but concerned. Mrs. Walsh, this is Kevin from First National. I'm calling about some unusual activity on your retirement account. We show a withdrawal of $127,000 yesterday. I wanted to confirm this was authorized by you. The room started spinning. I'm sorry, what did you say? A withdrawal of $127,000 from your retirement account. The paperwork shows it was authorized by Bradley Walsh using power of attorney. But the amount was so large, our manager wanted to double-check with you directly. I managed to say I'd call them back and hung up the phone. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial Bradley's number.
Mom, answerat cheerfully.
What's up? Bradley, the bank called. They said you withdrew $127,000 from my retirement account. Please tell me there's been a mistake. There was a long pause. Then his voice changed completely. Oh, right. Yeah, I was going to call you about that. Going to call me? Bradley, that's my entire retirement savings. Mom, calm down. I can explain. But his explanation made everything worse. He told me that Amber needed a new car because her old one was unreliable. He said they'd found the perfect SUV, but they had to move fast or someone else would buy it. He said he'd planned to tell me, but he knew I'd worry about the money, so he decided to just handle it himself. We'll pay you back, he said. It's not like you need the money right now anyway. You've got your house, you've got your pension. This is just sitting in the bank doing nothing. When I tried to explain that the money was my security, my emergency fund, my peace of mind, he got angry. Mom, you're being dramatic. It's not like we stole it. I'm your son. Family helps family. That's when he said the words that changed everything between us forever. Besides, what are you gonna do about it? You're 68 years old with no money and nowhere to go. You should be grateful we're even talking to you. ## Section 2. The Discovery. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen for 2 hours, staring at the wall. My son had just stolen my life savings and told me I should be grateful. The boy I'd raised, the man I'd trusted with everything, had looked at my vulnerability and seen an opportunity. But Bradley had made one crucial mistake. He assumed that because I was old, I was powerless. He forgot that I hadn't just worked at a bank. I'd run a bank branch. And in 35 years of banking, I'd seen every type of financial fraud and elder abuse imaginable. More importantly, I'd learned exactly how to stop it. The first thing I did was call Kevin back at the bank. Kevin Martinez had started as a teller when I was still branch manager, and I'd trained him myself. Kevin, it's Beverly Walsh. I need you to listen carefully. That withdrawal was not authorized by me. And I need you to start fraud procedures immediately. Mrs. Walsh, I'm so sorry this happened. What do you need me to do? First, I need you to freeze any other accounts that Bradley has access to. Second, I need copies of all the paperwork he signed. Third, I need you to start a paper trail documenting this as unauthorized use of power of attorney. Kevin was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Walsh, can I ask you something? When you worked here, didn't you handle cases like this? Yes, Kevin. Many times. And I learned that the first 48 hours are critical. The longer we wait, the harder it becomes to recover the money. After I hung up with Kevin, I walked to my bedroom closet and pulled down a box I hadn't touched since Harold died. Inside were all my old banking files, training materials, fraud investigation procedures, and contact information for lawyers who specialized in financial crimes. I kept these files because I'd always thought someday I might volunteer to help other seniors avoid financial scams. I never imagined I'd need them to protect myself from my own son. As I spread the papers across my dining room table, my phone rang. It was Amber. "Beverly, Bradley told me you called about the car." Her voice had that same sweet tone she'd used during all those coffee visits. "I just want you to know how much this means to us. This car is going to make such a difference for our family." "Amber, that money was stolen from me." "Oh honey, that's such an ugly word. Bradley didn't steal anything. He's your son. He was just helping our family, and families help each other." "By taking my entire retirement savings without asking?" "Beverly, you're getting upset over nothing. It's not like you need the money. You've got your little house, you've got your Social Security. What were you saving that money for anyway? You can't take it with you." The casual cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. She was talking about my life savings like it was pocket change I'd left lying around. "Besides," she continued, "we'll pay you back when we can. But right now, we needed the car more than you needed the money sitting in some account collecting dust." That's when I realized something important. Amber wasn't just complicit in this theft. She was the mastermind. All those coffee visits, all those conversations about my finances, all the subtle suggestions that I couldn't handle my own money. It had all been leading to this moment. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and smiled for the first time in 3 days. Bradley and Amber thought they'd outsmarted a helpless old woman. They thought they'd gotten away with the perfect crime. They had no idea they'd just declared war on someone who'd spent 35 years learning how to fight financial fraud. And I'd never lost a case yet. The next morning, I drove to the car dealership where Bradley worked. I told the receptionist I was interested in buying a car for my granddaughter, and asked to speak with a salesperson. I made sure to ask for someone other than Bradley. The salesperson, a young man named Chris, was very helpful. As we walked around the lot, I casually mentioned that my son worked there. "Oh, you're Bradley's mom," Chris said. "He's been so excited about that beautiful new SUV his wife got. Man, that was a sweet ride. Fully loaded, leather seats, premium sound system. Your son said it was an early anniversary gift." "Really? How much did something like that cost?" "Well, between you and me, the sticker price was $89,000. But Bradley got the family discount, so they probably paid around $85,000. I thanked Chris and left the dealership with my first piece of hard evidence. Bradley had told me they'd spent the entire $127,000 on the car, but they'd actually spent $85,000. Where was the other $42,000? My next stop was the county clerk's office. I requested copies of any recent property transactions involving Bradley and Amber. What I found made my blood boil. 2 weeks after buying the SUV, they'd put a down payment on a vacation condo in Florida. The down payment was $40,000. So my entire retirement savings had been used to buy them a luxury car and a vacation home. Money I'd spent 35 years saving, money that was supposed to keep me secure in my old age, had been turned into toys for my son and his wife. But I was just getting started. I spent the next week methodically building my case. I printed bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawal. I collected emails and text messages where Bradley and Amber had asked for money in the past. I documented every conversation we'd had about my finances. Most importantly, I reached out to my old contacts in the banking industry. I called Patricia Hernandez, who now worked in the fraud investigation department at the State Banking Commission. "Beverly, how wonderful to hear from you. How's retirement treating you?" "Not so well, Patricia. I need some advice. My son used power of attorney to steal my retirement savings, and I want to know what my options are." Patricia's tone immediately became serious. "How much money are we talking about?" $127,000. My entire retirement account. "Beverly, that's a felony. Power of attorney doesn't give him the right to use your money for his own benefit. It's supposed to be used for your care and your expenses, not to buy himself cars and vacation homes." That's what I thought. What's my next step? You need to file a police report immediately. Then you need to contact a lawyer who specializes in elder financial abuse. I can give you some names. Patricia also gave me information that Bradley and Amber definitely didn't expect me to know. Under state law, any misuse of power of attorney that involves more than $100,000 is automatically classified as a Class B felony. The penalties include up to 20 years in prison and full financial restitution. More importantly, the law requires that all assets purchased with stolen money be seized and sold to repay the victim. I hung up the phone and looked at the stack of evidence I'd collected: bank records, property transactions, witness statements from the car dealership, and now expert testimony from a state banking official. Bradley and Amber thought they'd committed the perfect crime. They'd assumed I was too old, too trusting, and too powerless to fight back. What they didn't know was that I'd just spent a week building a case that would destroy their lives. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with everything I'd gathered and started planning my next moves. In 35 years of banking, I'd learned that the key to winning any financial dispute is patience, documentation, and timing. Bradley and Amber were expecting me to be angry and emotional. They were probably prepared for me to yell and cry and threaten them. What they weren't prepared for was a methodical, professional investigation that would systematically destroy every lie they'd told. My first call was to attorney William Harper, one of the lawyers Patricia had recommended. William specialized in elder financial abuse and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless with family members who stole from seniors. Mrs. Walsh, based on what you've told me, this is one of the clearest cases of financial elder abuse I've seen in years, William said after I'd explained the situation. Your son used his power of attorney to steal your money for his own benefit. That's a serious felony. What can we do about it? Well, we have several options. We can file criminal charges which could result in him going to prison. We can file a civil lawsuit to recover your money plus damages. And we can petition the court to have all assets purchased with your money seized and returned to you. All of them. The car, the condo, anything else they bought with your $127,000. The law is very clear. They can't profit from their crime. William explained the timeline. First, we'd file a police report and let the criminal investigation begin. Then we'd file civil papers demanding immediate return of my money. The criminal case would take months, but the civil case could freeze their assets within weeks. There's one thing you should know, Mrs. Walsh. Cases like this often tear families apart permanently. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Bradley's words. What are you going to do about it? You're 68 years old with no money and nowhere to go. I thought about Amber's casual cruelty. You can't take it with you. Mr. Harper, they tore this family apart when they decided to steal from me. I'm just going to make sure they face the consequences. After I hung up with William, I made my second strategic call. I dialed my nephew Tommy Walsh, who worked as a private investigator in the next county over. Aunt Beverly. What a nice surprise. How are you doing? I'm doing well, Tommy, but I need your help with something. It's about Bradley. Tommy had never liked Bradley, even when they were kids. Bradley had always been the golden child who got everything handed to him, while Tommy had to work for everything he'd achieved. When I explained what Bradley had done, Tommy's response was immediate and angry. That piece of garbage stole from you? Aunt Beverly, tell me what you need me to do. I need you to document their lifestyle. Take pictures of the new car, the condo, anything else they might have bought with my money. I need proof that they're living well while claiming they'll pay me back when they can. Consider it done. I'll have a full report for you by the end of the week. My third call was to my old friend Dorothy Chun, who worked at the local newspaper. Dorothy had covered financial crimes for years, and she'd always been interested in stories about elder abuse. Beverly, I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I have to ask, would you be willing to go public with this story? A lot of seniors are getting scammed by their own families, and your case could help others recognize the warning signs. I thought about it carefully. Going public would mean admitting that my own son had stolen from me. It would be embarrassing and painful, but it would also serve a purpose. Dorothy, if my story can help even one other senior avoid what I'm going through, then yes. I'll talk to you. There's something else, Beverly. The local TV news station has been looking for stories about family financial abuse. If you're willing, I could put you in touch with them too. By the time I hung up the phone, I had a complete strategy in place. Criminal charges to put Bradley in prison. civil lawsuit to get my money back, asset seizure to take away their toys, private investigator to document their crimes, media coverage to expose their actions to the entire community. What they didn't know was that they hadn't just stolen from a helpless old woman. They'd stolen from a retired bank manager who knew exactly how to destroy financial criminals. And unlike Bradley, I never started a fight I wasn't absolutely certain I could win. On Monday morning, I walked into the police station and filed a formal complaint for financial elder abuse and theft. Detective Michael Torres took my statement and reviewed all my documentation. "Mrs. Walsh, this is incredibly thorough," he said, flipping through the bank records and property documents. "Most people who file these complaints don't have half this much evidence." "Detective, I worked in banking for 35 years. I know what kind of evidence you need to make a case stick." "Well, based on what you've shown me, we have grounds for immediate action. I'll be obtaining a warrant for your son's arrest, and will also be freezing his assets pending investigation." That afternoon, Detective Torres called me back. "Mrs. Walsh, we executed the warrant this morning. Bradley Walsh has been arrested and charged with financial elder abuse, a Class B felony. He's being held on $50,000 bail." I'd expected to feel satisfaction when this moment came. Instead, I felt a deep sadness. This was my son, the baby I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for. But he'd made his choice when he decided to steal from me. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Amber, and she was furious. "Beverly, what the hell did you do? Bradley's in jail. They arrested him at work in front of everyone. He could lose his job." "Amber, Bradley stole $127,000 from me. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? He didn't steal anything. He's your son. He was just trying to help our family by taking my entire retirement savings without asking." "God, Beverly, you're being so dramatic. It's just money. We said we'd pay you back." "When? When exactly were you planning to pay me back? After you'd spent it all on cars and vacation homes?" There was a pause. "How did you know about the condo?" "Amber, I know about everything. The car that cost $85,000, not $127,000 like you told me. The $40,000 down payment on your Florida condo. I know exactly how you spent my money. You don't understand. We needed those things. The car was for safety, and the condo is an investment." "Stop. Just stop. You stole from me, and now you're going to face the consequences." "Beverly, you're making a huge mistake. If you don't drop these charges, you're going to lose your son forever. Is that really what you want?" "Amber, I lost my son the moment he decided I was nothing more than a bank account he could raid whenever he wanted something. I hung up and immediately called William Harper. "Mr. Harper, they just arrested Bradley. How quickly can we move on the civil case?" "I can file the papers tomorrow morning. We'll demand immediate return of the money plus damages, and we'll ask for a preliminary injunction to freeze all their assets." "Good. I also want to make sure they can't sell the car or the condo before we can seize them." "Already on it, Mrs. Walsh. By the end of the week, they won't be able to sell so much as a piece of furniture without court approval." That evening, Tommy called with his preliminary report. "Aunt Beverly, you're not going to believe this. I've been watching Bradley's house, and they've got contractors there installing a swimming pool. Looks like they've been spending even more of your money. How much do you think a pool costs? For what they're doing? Probably $30,000 to $40,000. Plus, I took pictures of Amber driving around town in that new SUV. She's been posting pictures of it on social media with captions like 'blessed' and 'living our best life.' Print out those social media posts, Tommy. We'll need them for court." "Already done." "Aunt Beverly, I have to ask, are you okay with all this? I know Bradley's your son." I thought about that question for a long time before answering. "Tommy, for 35 years I helped families protect their money from criminals. I never imagined that someday I'd have to protect my money from my own family. But Bradley made his choice. Now he gets to live with the consequences." By Friday of that week, Bradley was out on bail, but everything else in his life was falling apart. The local newspaper had run Dorothy's article about the case, and everyone in town was talking about it. His co-workers at the car dealership knew he'd been arrested for stealing from his own mother. The parents at Kelly and Mason's school had read about it in the paper. Most importantly, the court had frozen all their assets. They couldn't sell the car, they couldn't sell the condo, and they couldn't even access their regular bank accounts without court approval. But I was just getting started. The newspaper article came out on Saturday morning with the headline, "Local man arrested for stealing $127,000 from elderly mother." Dorothy had done exactly what I'd hoped. She'd made Bradley and Amber's crimes front-page news. But what made the story go viral was what happened next. On Sunday morning, I was getting ready for church when my phone rang. It was Sandra Kim from Channel 7 News. "Mrs. Walsh, I read about your case in the newspaper. Would you be willing to do an interview? Stories like yours are becoming more common, and we'd like to help raise awareness about family financial abuse." I'd been thinking about this possibility all week. Going on television would mean telling the entire city that my son had stolen from me. It would be humiliating and painful, but it would also ensure that Bradley and Amber faced the full consequences of their actions. "Miss Kim, yes. I'll do the interview." The interview was scheduled for Tuesday afternoon. Sandra came to my house with a camera crew, and we sat in my living room. The same room where Bradley had convinced me to sign the power of attorney papers. "Mrs. Walsh, can you tell us what happened?" I told the story simply and clearly. How Bradley had convinced me to sign power of attorney papers. How he'd drained my retirement account without telling me. How he'd used my life savings to buy luxury items for his family. "What was your reaction when you discovered what he'd done?" "I was heartbroken," I said honestly. "But I was also angry. I'd spent 35 years working in banking, helping families protect their money from exactly this kind of crime. I never imagined I'd have to protect myself from my own son. What would you say to other seniors who might be facing similar situations?" I'd say don't be ashamed and don't stay quiet. Family members who steal from elderly relatives are counting on their victims being too embarrassed or too loyal to fight back. But theft is theft, no matter who does it. The interview aired Thursday evening during the 6 o'clock news. By Friday morning it had been shared hundreds of times on social media. The local radio stations were talking about it. People were calling it the story everyone's talking about. But the real impact was on Bradley and Amber's daily lives. Tommy called me Friday afternoon with an update. "Aunt Beverly, you need to hear this. I was at the grocery store this morning, and I overheard two women talking about Bradley in the checkout line. One of them said, 'Can you believe that man stole his mother's retirement money? What kind of person does that to their own family?' The social isolation was swift and complete. Kelly called me crying on Saturday morning. 'Grandma Beverly, everyone at school is talking about Dad. They're saying he's a thief who steals from old people. Some kids won't even talk to me anymore.' Kelly, honey, I'm sorry you're going through this. But your father made these choices. He decided to take money that didn't belong to him. But everyone's acting like he's some kind of monster. He's still my dad. Kelly, I love you very much. But your father stole my entire retirement savings. That money was supposed to keep me secure for the rest of my life. What he did was wrong, and there have to be consequences." Mason called me that evening. He was angrier than his sister. "Grandma, why are you doing this to our family? Why couldn't you just keep this private?" "Mason, I didn't make this public. Your father's actions made it public when he committed a felony. But now everyone's treating us like criminals. Mom can't even go to the grocery store without people staring at her. Your mother helped plan this theft, Mason. She spent months convincing me that I couldn't handle my own finances, so your father could steal my money." The social consequences were spreading beyond just gossip. Bradley's boss at the car dealership called him in for a meeting. While they couldn't fire him for being arrested, not until he was convicted, they could certainly make his work life uncomfortable. Amber lost her part-time job at the dental office. The dentist told her that having an employee associated with elder financial abuse was bad for business. The contractors working on their swimming pool walked off the job when they learned the money for the project was frozen by the court. Most painfully for Amber, her mother stopped speaking to her. Amber's mom called me directly to apologize. "Beverly, I'm so sorry about what Amber did. I raised her better than this. I'm ashamed that my daughter could treat you this way." By the end of the week, Bradley and Amber were completely isolated. Their friends were avoiding them. Their neighbors were whispering about them. Their children were being shunned at school. Their employers were treating them like criminals. Everything they'd gained by stealing my money, the car, the condo, the social status, was turning into a prison of public shame. But the legal consequences were just beginning. 3 weeks after Bradley's arrest, William Harper called with news I'd been waiting for. "Mrs. Walsh, I have the court order. All assets purchased with your money are being seized immediately. The sheriff's department will be taking possession of the SUV today, and the Florida condo will be listed for sale next week. What about the money from the sales? Every penny goes back to your account, plus interest and legal fees. The court also awarded you $25,000 in punitive damages for emotional distress." I hung up and immediately called Tommy. "Tommy, can you drive over to Bradley's house around noon? I want you to document the sheriff taking the car." "Aunt Beverly, are you sure you want me to record that?" "Tommy, they stole my retirement money and told me I should be grateful. I want proof that crime doesn't pay." At 12:30, Tommy called me back. "Aunt Beverly, you should have seen it. The sheriff showed up with a tow truck. Amber came running out of the house screaming about how they needed the car, how they couldn't afford to replace it. The sheriff just handed her the court order and had it towed away." Did anyone see it happen? Half the neighborhood was watching. People were standing in their driveways taking pictures with their phones. That afternoon, Detective Torres called with an update on the criminal case. "Mrs. Walsh, we've completed our investigation. Your son will be facing charges of financial elder abuse in the first degree, theft in the first degree, and fraud. If convicted on all counts, he's looking at 15 to 20 years in prison." "What about his wife?" "Amber Walsh is being charged as an accessory. We have evidence that she helped plan the theft and benefited from the stolen money. She's looking at 5 to 10 years. The next week brought even more consequences. The State Banking Commission announced they were conducting a formal investigation into how Bradley had been able to drain my account so easily. The bank was facing potential fines for inadequate oversight of power of attorney transactions. More importantly, the story had caught the attention of the State Attorney General's office. They announced a new initiative to crack down on family financial abuse, using my case as an example of why stronger protections were needed for seniors. But the consequences that seemed to affect Bradley and Amber the most were the financial ones. With their assets frozen and their income reduced, they couldn't make the payments on their house. The bank started foreclosure proceedings. They had to pull Kelly and Mason out of their private schools and enroll them in public school. They couldn't afford the insurance payments on the condo in Florida, so the insurance lapsed. When a hurricane damaged the roof that summer, they didn't have coverage to pay for repairs. Most painfully, they had to cancel all their family vacation plans. Kelly's senior trip, Mason's summer camp, the family cruise they'd been planning, all canceled because they no longer had access to stolen money. Amber called me one last time, 3 months after Bradley's arrest. "Beverly, please. We'll do anything. We'll pay you back every penny. We'll sign any papers you want. Just please drop the charges. Please don't send Bradley to prison." "Amber, how exactly would you pay me back? You don't have jobs, you don't have savings, and all your assets are being sold to repay what you stole. We'll figure something out. We'll get loans, we'll sell things." "You'll sell what?" "Everything you own was bought with my money, and it's all being returned to me." "Beverly, please. Think about Kelly and Mason. They don't deserve to have their father in prison." "You're right, Amber. Kelly and Mason don't deserve this. They don't deserve to have parents who are thieves. They don't deserve to find out that their luxury lifestyle was paid for by stealing from their grandmother. We made a mistake. You made a choice. You spent months planning this theft. You manipulated me into signing papers, you drained my account, and when I confronted you about it, you told me I should be grateful. That wasn't a mistake. That was calculated cruelty. But family forgives family. Family doesn't steal from family, Amber. You stopped being my family the moment you decided I was nothing more than a bank account you could raid." I hung up and never spoke to her again. 6 months after I'd filed the police report, the criminal trial began. I'd been dreading this moment. sitting in a courtroom while my son was prosecuted for stealing from me. But I knew it was necessary. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They had bank records showing the unauthorized withdrawal. They had evidence of the luxury purchases. They had recordings of my phone calls with Bradley and Amber. They had testimony from bank employees who confirmed that proper procedures hadn't been followed. Most damaging of all, they had the social media posts Tommy had collected. Pictures of Amber showing off her new car with captions like "blessed" and "living our best life." Pictures of their Florida condo with captions about family investments. All posted while they were telling me they couldn't afford to pay me back. When it was my turn to testify, the prosecutor asked me to explain what the stolen money had meant to me. That $127,000 was my security, I said. I worked for 35 years to save that money. It was supposed to ensure that I could live independently, that I could take care of myself, that I would never be a burden on anyone. When my son took that money, he didn't just steal my savings. He stole my peace of mind and my independence. The prosecutor then asked about the power of attorney papers. Mrs. Walsh, did you understand that signing those papers would give your son access to your bank accounts? I understood that it would allow him to help me with my finances if I became unable to manage them myself. I did not understand that it would give him the right to steal my entire retirement savings for his own benefit. Bradley's defense attorney tried to argue that this was all a misunderstanding, that Bradley had intended to pay the money back, that families help each other during difficult times. But the evidence was too clear. Bradley had used his power of attorney not to help me, but to help himself. He'd bought luxury items while telling me the money was for necessities. He'd spent my life savings on toys and vacations while claiming he was protecting my interests. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. As the verdict was read, I watched my son's face crumble. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, he looked like the little boy I'd raised instead of the man who'd betrayed me. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following week. As the court adjourned, Bradley turned to look at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and for a moment I saw recognition there, recognition of what he'd lost, what he'd thrown away, what he'd destroyed. After everyone else had left, William Harper and I sat in the empty courtroom. Mrs. Walsh, how do you feel? Sad, I said honestly. I feel sad that it came to this, but I also feel like justice has been served. The civil case is completely resolved. All your money has been recovered, plus damages and interest. You actually came out about $40,000 ahead when everything was tallied up. And Bradley and Amber? They've lost everything. The house is gone, the jobs are gone, their savings are gone. They'll be starting over from nothing when Bradley gets out of prison. A week later, Bradley was sentenced to 12 years in state prison. Amber received 3 years, with the possibility of parole after 18 months if she completed financial crimes counseling and community service. As we left the courthouse after sentencing, I ran into Kelly and Mason in the parking lot. They were both crying. "Grandma Beverly," Kelly said, "I know you're angry at Dad and Mom, but they're still our parents. And now we don't have anybody." For the first time in months, my heart broke for someone other than myself. "Kelly, Mason, you're always welcome in my home. What your parents did to me was wrong, but you too are innocent. You'll always be my grandchildren, and I'll always love you." Mason looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "But what's going to happen to us now?" "I don't know, sweetheart. But whatever happens, you'll get through it. And when you do, you'll be stronger people than your parents ever were." It's been 2 years since Bradley went to prison. In that time, I've rebuilt my retirement savings and more. The recovered money, plus the damages awarded by the court, plus the appreciation from some good investments, has left me more financially secure than I was before this all started. Kelly graduated high school and is now attending community college. I've been helping with her expenses, not by giving her cash, but by paying her tuition directly to the school. She's studying accounting, and she says she wants to help protect seniors from financial abuse. Mason is a junior in high school now. He's been working part-time at a grocery store and saving every penny. He told me he never wants to depend on anyone else's money ever again. He's learned a lesson about self-reliance that his parents never taught him. Amber was released from prison last year. She moved to another state and hasn't contacted me or the kids. Kelly gets occasional letters, but Mason refuses to read them. Bradley won't be eligible for parole for another 4 years. Kelly visits him sometimes. Mason has never gone to see him and says he never will. As for me, I've found a new purpose. I volunteer with the State Attorney General's office, speaking to senior groups about financial abuse. I tell my story at churches, community centers, and retirement homes. I help other seniors recognize the warning signs of family manipulation. The local newspaper has called me the grandmother who fought back, and I've received letters from seniors all over the country who read about my case online. Many of them tell me that my story gave them the courage to stand up to family members who were stealing from them. Last month, I testified at the state legislature in support of stronger power of attorney laws. The bill passed unanimously and is now known as Beverly's Law. It requires banks to wait 48 hours before processing large withdrawals made through power of attorney, giving seniors time to verify that the transactions are legitimate. People sometimes ask me if I regret what I did to Bradley, if I wish I just kept quiet and kept the family together. My answer is always the same. Bradley destroyed our family when he decided to steal from me. I just made sure he faced the consequences. A family built on theft and manipulation isn't a family worth keeping. A son who sees his mother as nothing more than a bank account to raid isn't a son worth protecting. I raised Bradley to be honest, hardworking, and respectful. When he chose to become a thief who preyed on his own mother, he stopped being the son I'd raised. The man who went to prison wasn't my boy. He was a criminal who happened to share my last name. But I've also learned something important. It's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to demand respect. And it's never too late to prove that being old doesn't mean being powerless. I'm 70 years old now, and I'm stronger than I've ever been. I have my financial security, I have my independence, and I have my dignity. I have 2 grandchildren who learned that actions have consequences, and that theft is always wrong, no matter who commits it. Most importantly, I have the satisfaction of knowing that I fought back. I refuse to be a victim. I refuse to let my son and daughter-in-law destroy my life and get away with it. Sometimes justice isn't pretty. Sometimes doing the right thing means making hard choices that hurt people you love. But sometimes standing up for yourself is the most important thing you can do. And sometimes the person who needs to learn that lesson the most is your own family. I sleep well at night knowing that I fought for myself when no one else would. I sleep well knowing that I turned my pain into purpose and my betrayal into a platform to help others. I sleep well knowing that being a victim was something that happened to me, but being a survivor was a choice I made every single day. And that choice made all the difference.
If this story got you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit deep, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this one, share it with them. Thanks for watching.